Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka, Ambassador, Embassy of Japan. Ms. Deborah Norville, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Ministry of Tourism. Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal, the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus. Members of Senior Management, the UE Cave Hill Campus. Professor Masato Takamatsu, President, Tourism Resilience Japan, and Distinguished JICA Chair, Keynote Speaker. Ms. Haruna Mori, Representative, Project Management Division, JICA Dominican Republic Office. Distinguished presenters and panelists, deans and heads of department, the UE Cave Hill Campus, representatives of the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, representatives of JICA, other members of the university community, distinguished guests, members of the media, guests viewing online via UWITV platforms, ladies and gentlemen. A warm Caribbean welcome to all from the University of the West Indies Cave Hill Campus in beautiful Barbados. My name is Christiane Walcott, and I'm delighted to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this evening's proceedings. In tonight's forum, we speak to tourism resilience and the place that sustainability can have, or perhaps more than ever before, must have in our tourism industries. This forum, hosted by the UE Cave Hill Campus, is a collaboration many months in the making with our partner, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA. In this case, we've had the opportunity to work closely with the Dominican Republic-based JICA office in our effort to stand up this event, and we will hear a bit from their representative, Ms. Haruna Mori, in a few moments. Our ambitions are great with this forum for many reasons. What started out as essentially a fairly formulaic lecture format in delivering the first JICA Chair lecture to be hosted in Barbados has meandered and grown into a forum that seeks to give thoughtful consideration and voice to realities that are common to both the Caribbean and Japanese contexts. We have also invited some exhibitors who are showcasing sustainable products and services, adding yet another layer to our conversation this evening, who are located around the rear perimeter of the room. So, in summary, we have retained the original focal point of tonight's presentation, that being the distinguished JICA Chair lecture to be delivered by Japanese expert Professor Masato Takamatsu. But within and beyond this, we look at disaster mitigation, management, and recovery, and ultimately what this means for our working understanding of resilience on multiple fronts. Even as we approached our final weeks of discussion and planning, Hurricane Melissa was stampeding across the Caribbean, affecting activities at the Cave Hill campus in her pre-hurricane status, and later impacting our colleagues at the very Dominican Republic JICA office on a day that we were having a team meeting as her fury continued to grow. And as we all know, Melissa went on to cause catastrophic destruction across Western Jamaica and other territories of the Northern Caribbean. And so we find ourselves here tonight at this undeniable precipice, even amid disastrous levels of rainfall that have been impacting Barbados in the past 36 hours, trying to make sense of realities that we're all living with and trying to live through. The goal is not just to bounce back, but it is indeed to bounce forward. We can't solve it all tonight, but we leap into this conversation with the hope of making our mark on the ongoing global dialogue on climate resilience and its ties to the development goals of island states like ours. At this time, it is with great pleasure that I invite Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor R. Clive Landis, to deliver opening remarks. Principal?
Thank you very much, Chair, Christiane Walcott. His Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka, Professor Masato Takamatsu, keynote speaker, distinguished presenters and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure, on behalf of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, to welcome everyone to this evening's forum examining the place of sustainability in the tourism industry, and in particular, the keynote lecture by Professor Masato Takamatsu and about resilient tourism. I don't think we could have arranged a more auspicious date for hosting this lecture. When I say auspicious, I mean relevant and impactful. Because once again, the Barbados and the Caribbean is in the grip of the climate crisis. And just to remind everyone how the Caribbean experiences climate change. So we, of course, have hurricanes, which are coming with increasing intensity and regularity, and they cause devastation in our countries in a way that larger countries cannot experience a hurricane. So even if you pick the worst hurricanes to hit the US, like Katrina, the drop in GDP would be a percentage point. But when Hurricane Maria hit Dominica, that was 1 year after Tropical Storm Erica hit Dominica, which already destroyed the airport and had lost, Dominica had lost 97% of its GDP. And then it was hit again by Hurricane Maria. Would anyone like to guess what percent of GDP Dominica lost after Hurricane Maria? Any guesses? You're an economist. So Professor Moore has the correct answer. Professor Moore is the professor of economics. So I'm glad that you got the right answer, because otherwise you'd have been in trouble. So Dominica lost another 200% of GDP. I mean, economists begin to cry at 2% of loss of GDP. At 20%, which is what Barbados lost in its GDP during COVID, an economist cannot even comprehend that. But 200%? I mean, when you do longitudinal analysis of the Caribbean region, Dominica's public finances were in a very good condition before Tropical Storm Erica. But after they lost 297% of GDP in 1 year, well, their public finances were really shot. And when you look at Jamaica, Jamaica has had a number of upgrades recently in its credit rating, its sovereign credit rating. The IMF has actually held up Jamaica as a poster child for reformed good governance, and now it has been hit by Hurricane Melissa. I don't think we know the percentages yet, but I think it's going to be in probably approaching 100% at least of GDP. So over time, countries in the Caribbean, for no fault of their own, will experience these cycles of public debt, and their public finances are no longer sound. So this is how we experience the climate change in the Caribbean. And we don't have to labor the point, but Bahamas, Hurricane Dorian, Beryl, which hit Grenada and St. Vincent, and Jamaica again. Half of our fishing fleet in Barbados sank last year during Hurricane Beryl. But it doesn't end there. How about water scarcity? How about the heat? I mean, our tourists are people just like us, and our students in our classrooms are really suffering under the heat. And the water scarcity. But it doesn't end there. We have, for many, well, as long as it's been measured, we have Sahara dust. Now, Sahara dust used to be seasonal, mostly over the summer months, maybe into September, maybe October, but now it's almost all year round. And it leads to a lot of health issues. I'm seeing one of our best public health practitioners, Dr. Kim Quimby over there, and I'm sure she would know in her clinic that a lot of people come in with a lot of sinus issues and respiratory issues and issues to do with their eyes and skin because of Sahara dust. And then our beaches, our beautiful beaches. Well, they don't look so beautiful when you've had a big sargassum mat that has dropped on a beach. I mean, these can be several, almost a foot deep of red, smelly seaweed. And like all good seaweed, it's very good at absorbing everything from the sea. Our researchers always remind us that sargassum is very important for the homeostasis of the oceans because it absorbs carbon dioxide. So you can think of it as the rainforest of the seas. Currently, it's expanding with all of the eutrophication coming off the coast of South America and the warming seas. So we will never again, I think, in our lifetime, have a period where we will not have very serious sargassum deposits on our beaches, and it destroys the natural beauty of our beaches and our tourism product. So as a university, we're very concerned to research what is happening to our climate and how the Caribbean experiences climate change. And this collaboration with JICA is in that tradition. The Japanese have had long-standing relationships with us in terms of research on the environment and our fisheries and the marine ecosystem. And in particular, we have strong relationships with Sophia University in Tokyo and also with the University of Okinawa, which we're developing relations with. And we're very grateful for JICA to have suggested Professor Masato Takamatsu to provide this keynote lecture and a forum. I had the pleasure of meeting Professor Takamatsu this morning, and like most professors, we had a very good meeting of the minds, and we are speaking in the same spirit. And so we come to yesterday's events, when Barbados was hit with a fairly freakish flood. Now, we already had the freak storm, which was a couple of years ago, where Barbados, little Barbados, suffered 4,700 lightning strikes in 1 hour. I mean, you can't tell me that that's normal run of the course of the climate. This is another manifestation of the climate crisis. And yesterday, we had what I can only describe as freak floods. And, as we know, it led to loss of life. And indeed, it affected today's forum, because the schools and the other tertiary institutions are closed. I think many people thought we might be closed, but actually the University of the West Indies is open. We wanted to have your forum, Professor Takamatsu. So, but Mia Motley said yesterday, while she was examining the damage, she said, we must build resilient infrastructure. This isn't going to be built in a day or a year. She spoke of a time frame of between 5 and 7 years, and we're talking about, resilient hotels. What does it mean? And I'm hoping that we're going to learn from Professor Takamatsu how we can have resilience in our tourism sector, resilient transport hubs, our utilities, infrastructure, water, electricity, and of course our drainage for managing water runoffs during an event like yesterday's floods. So again, I will end just by saying that the really couldn't be a better time for us to benefit at the Cavell campus and also in Barbados and the Caribbean as a regional university. We're very proud to be hosting this distinguished lecture and forum because we want to learn more about how we can inbuild tourism resilience into our infrastructure. So I invite everyone who is here in person, but also everyone who is online and who may be accessing this lecture and forum online to enjoy this evening's proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Principal, for bringing those words of welcome and for really framing this discourse for us this evening. Next, we're pleased to invite remarks from His Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to Barbados. Ambassador Miyasaka brings to his role a wealth of knowledge and high-level government experience through his cumulative tenures with the National Land Agency, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, the Embassy of Japan in France, and the Cabinet Office. His areas of expertise include roads, land policy, disaster prevention, real estate, the construction industry, and the overseas expansion of infrastructure. Your Excellency, with such a comprehensive background in the aforementioned areas, your presence with us this evening is indeed well placed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ambassador Yusuke Miyasaka to deliver his remarks.
Ms. Deborah Noble, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism. Professor Clive Landis, Vice Chancellor and Principal, the University of the West Indies, Cavell campus. Professor Masato Takamatsu. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In Japanese, konbanwa. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, and JICA for their collaboration in organizing this important discussion on tourism resilience, which is of great significance to both Japan and the region. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Masato Takamatsu for visiting Barbados and delivering such an insightful presentation. I'm confident that this will serve as a wonderful opportunity for Barbados and Japan to further deepen our partnership. Japan is a country that has long coexisted with natural hazards, including earthquakes, typhoons, and volcanic eruptions. At the same time, the number of international visitors has surged in recent years. In 2024, Japan welcomed approximately 37 million foreign tourists, an all-time high. In this context, Japan has been striving to strike a delicate balance between promoting tourism and enhancing resilience. Our efforts include improving early warning systems, strengthening risk communication through diverse methods, balancing disaster-resilient urban development with tourism promotion, and advancing tourism crisis management to safeguard travel safety. As hurricanes become more intense and frequent, Caribbean nations, where tourism is a key pillar of the economy, face similar challenges. opportunities such as this forum, where Japan and the Caribbean can share experiences and lessons on tourism and resilience, are therefore highly meaningful. Today, I look forward to revealing and engaging panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And we now have the honor of hearing from our partners at Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, represented this evening by Ms. Haruna Mori of the Project Management Division for CARICOM member states at JICA's Dominican Republic office. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the wider JICA team who is with you this evening, as well as my good friend Rebecca, who is based at the Dominican Republic office, as well as Mr. Hisashi Suzuki, both of whom were key members of our planning committee. So ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Ms. Haruna Mori to make her remarks.
Thank you, Christiane, for the introduction. Distinguished guests, His Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka, Ambassador of Japan and Barbados, Ms. Deborah Norval, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, and Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus. And esteemed Professor Masato Takamatsu, panelists, and all distinguished attendees, good evening. Good evening, thank you. From the JICA Dominican Republic office, on behalf of our Chief Representative, Mr. Kota Sakaguchi, it is a privilege to welcome you to this first ever JICA Chair Lecture in Barbados, hosted here at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus. Several JICA Chair Lectures have been held with the Mona campus in Jamaica, and we are deeply grateful to the University, the Caribbean's leading higher education institution with a global presence, for its unwavering support and partnership in making this milestone possible here in Barbados as well. The JICA Chair program stems from the JICA Development Studies program, which was launched in 2018 in cooperation with various universities in Japan, with an aim to develop future leaders of developing countries. In order to expand the opportunities of such studies, JICA launched the JICA Chair program in collaboration with leading universities in our partner countries. This program is designed to share Japan's unique experiences of modernization and development cooperation with partner countries. Through lectures, research collaboration, and academic exchange, the program aims to inspire future leaders by exploring Japan's journey from a non-Western nation to a modern democratic society while preserving its cultural identity. The JICA Dominican Republic office, which oversees operations in 14 CARICOM member states, as you may see there, and serves as a regional hub, works in the Caribbean region in 6 priority areas of cooperation: climate change, health and sanitation improvement, education sector strengthening, agriculture and fisheries, private sector development, and CARICOM development and collaboration. Current JICA-supported projects in Barbados include the dispatch of a regional policy advisor for disaster risk reduction, Mr. Naoki Matsumura, who is here with us today as well, stationed in the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDIMA, as well as a country-focused training course on capacity building for development of science and evidence-based geospatial modeling maps for the Marine Spatial Plan, a mouthful, with the continuous support of the Coastal Zone Management Unit, CZMU, among other knowledge co-creation program training courses offered to leading professionals in the country. As we embark on this new academic journey under the JICA Chair program here in Barbados on the topic of tourism resilience, we would like to reaffirm our commitment to knowledge sharing and collaboration to build a prosperous, sustainable, and resilient future. On behalf of JICA, I extend heartfelt thanks to the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus, for hosting this event, and to all of you for your presence and support. May today mark the beginning of many fruitful exchanges between Barbados, Japan, and our wider Caribbean community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haruna Mori. And we're so pleased that you were able to join us for tonight's special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, bring in the final round of remarks before we invite Professor Takamatsu to deliver the JICA Chair Lecture is the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. The Honourable Minister, Mr. Ian Goodin-Edgell, was invited to join us this evening. However, he was forced to tender his apologies. But we're happy to be joined by Ms. Deborah Norville, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, who has graciously agreed to deliver remarks on behalf of the Minister. P.S. Norville, we welcome you to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Professor Landis, thank you for the gracious invitation and for convening this critical forum. Professor Takamatsu, I got it right. We are profoundly grateful that you have traveled from Japan to share your wisdom with us. Our partners from JICA and the Caribbean Tourism Organization, distinguished panelists, guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a distinct pleasure to be here, but let us be clear from the outset, we're not here for a theoretical discussion. We are here for a strategic one. The theme of tourism resilience is for us in the Caribbean a matter of economic survival. For a small island developing state, the question is not if a shock will come, but when. Our success is not measured by the precision of our predictions, but by the depth of our preparedness and our collective ability to absorb the blow, minimize the losses to our people and our economy, and return to a state of normality with speed and purpose. The reality is urgent and present. That is why in 2024, Barbados launched an $11.5 billion investment plan for prosperity, a bold blueprint to secure our future. This is not a small undertaking. It is a national mobilization requiring $6.6 billion from private capital and $5.5 billion from public resources. The development of 7 new hotels by 2029, which adds some 1,600 rooms, is just the beginning. This expansion will generate substantial employment, not only in construction, but also in the ancillary services and infrastructure that support a world-class destination, with more projects already in the pipeline. Barbados's tourism sector demonstrated strong and diversified growth in the first 9 months of 2025, with long-stay arrivals rising to just over 500,000, a 5.5% increase year over year as at September 2025. The story of this expansion was written by our key source markets. The United States, our largest partner, grew by 12% and contributed 36% of all visitors, driven by new flight routes. Meanwhile, Europe's 15.5% ascent highlighted the power of sustained marketing, and an 8.2% rise from CARICOM neighbors underscored the value of regional air connectivity. The narrative also included minor corrections with slight dips from the UK and Canada directly tied to reductions in airline seating. The cruise sector similarly experienced a dramatic 23.3% year-over-year upswing in 2025, with total passenger arrivals climbing by just over 116,000 to reach 618,000 as at September 2025. This robust overall growth, however, masks a highly seasonal performance across the year. The first 4 months demonstrated exceptional strength, with January and April both surging by 54%, propelling the winter season to a powerful start. But we're not just making plans, we're taking concrete, innovative action. We are, one, embedded climate budget tagging to track every climate-related dollar we spend. Two, we have amended the Procurement Act to make government spending more sustainable. Three, through a pioneering debt conversion, we have freed up nearly $50 million for our sustainability fund. And we have established the Blue-Green Bank, a groundbreaking institution designed to attract private investment into climate-resilient projects. Our Roofs to Reefs program is a testament to this integrated national approach, linking environmental protection from our homes to our coasts. Yet, we confront a stark reality that the global financial architecture remains profoundly stacked against small island states. In the face of this inequity, we have a simple and unwavering choice. There can be no surrender. The recent paltry sums in global loss and damage funds, which would be wiped out by a single major hurricane, prove that we cannot wait for salvation from abroad. We must be the firm craftsmen of our own resilience. This is the hard, necessary work we are doing. It requires all of us, government, private sector, and every citizen to understand the stakes and to harden our collective resolve. This national commitment to building resilience is the very foundation upon which a stable tourism sector must be built. The Barbados Plan outlines transformative investments in economic and logistical infrastructure designed to catalyze private sector growth. The most substantial opportunity is the modernization of the Barbados port to establish it as a regional resilience hub with a minimal public investment poised to unlock $1 billion in private financing. Simultaneously, the transportation system is transforming through modernization and electrification, improving daily life and economic efficiency. These projects are complemented by a push to unleash renewable energy potential, leveraging the island's non-fossil resources to reduce the import bill and enhance competitiveness. A core strategic focus is on protecting the nation's physical and economic assets from climate impacts. A dedicated coastline rehabilitation program will protect vital tourism infrastructure and the built environment from erosion and storm surge. In parallel, climate-smart agriculture investments aim to drive productivity and reduce the high food import bill, thereby strengthening national food security and freeing up resources for other investments. Collectively, these cross-sectoral investments represent a comprehensive resilience building strategy. They are designed not only to protect Barbados from external shocks, but also to foster sustainable economic growth, reduce dependency on imports, and improve the quality of life for all citizens. The model relies on strategic public investment to de-risk and catalyze much larger flows of private capital, ensuring the long-term viability and prosperity of the nation. The names of the storms tell our story. Ivan, Tomas, Katrina, Beryl, and most recently, Melissa, a hurricane that rewrote the record books and reminded us with brutal force that the climate crisis is our present reality, not a future threat. Over 40% of the Jamaican landscape, including life, homes, and businesses, was completely damaged, forcing Jamaica to create greater capacity in the part of that island that was fortunate to receive little to no storm damage. These events expose a fundamental truth. For a nation like Barbados, where tourism is our main export, contributing 12% directly to GDP and influencing over 40% of our economy through sectors like agriculture and retail, a hurricane is more than a natural disaster. It is a systemic economic shock that ruptures our very lifeline. Furthermore, we must never lose sight of the direct link between a vibrant tourism sector and sustainable employment for our people. This industry is the lifeblood for approximately 16,000 persons and their households, directly and indirectly employing a significantly higher portion of our workforce. As the fastest growing industry to date, its expansion is synonymous with the creation of stable, meaningful jobs. By strategically strengthening our tourism resilience, diversifying our source markets, enhancing our product, and investing in our people, we fortify this vital source of employment against future storms. The lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic are indelible. While tourism is vulnerable to global shocks, it has also proven to be the most resilient and fastest sector of our economy to recover, reigniting growth and restoring livelihoods with remarkable speed. Therefore, investing in tourism is not a choice, but a direct investment in the economic security and sustainable future of every Barbadian. We've learned that resilience, the ability to bounce back, is no longer sufficient. We must build stability. The ability to hold firm, to maintain consistent economic output, and to ensure reliable livelihoods even in the face of disruption. And today, the shocks we face are not only environmental. The escalating geopolitical uncertainty in our region, the brazen use of Caribbean seaways by transnational drug cartels, and the profound instability affecting our sister nations in Haiti, Jamaica, and Cuba represent a clear and present danger to our economic stability. This new reality presents a critical opportunity to strengthen regional defense forces as a collective security measure, a more sustainable and strategic approach than any single nation bearing the immense cost of securing the region alone, unless absolutely necessary. This seasonality underscores a deeper strategic risk for tourism-dependent economies. Our access to vital airlift is not solely a matter of market demand, but can be dictated by the regulatory decisions of political superpowers. A single ruling from an entity like the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, which governs the safety ratings that allows carriers to fly into the States, can instantly restrict or cripple the flow of visitors. The dramatic 54% surge in arrivals we saw this January, largely fueled by U.S. airlift, could be just as swiftly reversed by a geopolitical or regulatory shift. This data is not just a report on passenger numbers. It is a stark reminder that our economic lifeline remains susceptible to decisions made in distant capitals, making the diversification of our markets and the strengthening of our regional air access a matter of national economic security. This is why the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport continues to take decisive steps and forge critical partnerships to understand where and to what degree vulnerabilities exist in our tourism spaces. Our commitment to stability is not just analytical, it is operational. At the heart of our crisis response is the Tourism Emergency Operations Center, TEOC, under the Department of Emergency Management. The TEOC is our strategic command post in a crisis, moving beyond just protecting our physical infrastructure. It is the vital nexus that coordinates the protection of our most valuable assets, our guests and our tourism workers. It ensures clear communication to safeguard visitors, directs resources to secure hotel zones and attractions, and works hand in glove with first responders. The TEOC is the practical embodiment of our duty of care, ensuring that when a crisis hits, our response is unified, swift, and effective for everyone who depends on the sector. I am pleased to announce tonight that we will soon launch a comprehensive tourism value chain stability assessment in partnership with the Cave Hill School of Business. This is not a traditional study. It is a deep diagnostic probe into the very heart of our tourism economy. It will move from the micro level assessing the financial wealth of our MSMEs and their supply chain stability to the meso level, evaluating how our institutions provide crisis support, right up to the macro level, reviewing the policies and governance that either foster or fracture our sector's stability. Its purpose is clear: to identify the key drivers of fragility and the anchors of strength across our entire value chain. It will provide us with a data-driven blueprint to enhance local value capture, reduce import dependency, and build a tourism sector that is not only profitable, but truly protectable. This is why this forum is so perfectly timed. The lessons Professor Takamatsu will share from Japan on crisis management and rapid recovery are a masterclass we must absorb. The insights from the CTO's planning manual and the panel discussion, which includes a representative from my ministry, will ensure our national vision is part of this crucial dialogue. The stability we seek is built on 3 pillars: the technical experience our partners offer, the strategic partnerships we forge in rooms like this, and the local innovation showcased in the exhibition here tonight. So let us use this evening to go beyond the talk of resilience alone and to commit to hard work of building stability. Let us leave here as partners in a shared mission to fortify our main economic engine against the shocks of tomorrow, ensuring that the beauty and promise of Barbados remains a source of prosperity and pride for generations to come. I thank the organizers, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Norval, for bringing those remarks on behalf of the Honourable Ian Gooding-Edgell, Minister of Tourism and International Transport, and for contextualising this discussion for us. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to this evening's JICA Chair Lecture. Masato Takamatsu, with his 43 years of experience in the travel and tourism industry, is a renowned tourism consultant, specializing in resilience and crisis management. The major earthquake and tsunami of 2011 that devastated the tourism destinations and businesses in the coastal areas of northern Japan has triggered his commitment to doing everything possible to make the tourism sector more resilient. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he assisted the Japan Tourism Agency and other relevant organizations in developing guidelines and manuals to minimize health risks of tourists and citizens in key destination communities, and for rapid recovery of the sector from the impact. Professor Takamatsu has been invited to speak at conferences and seminars as a destination marketing and tourism crisis management expert. He is an expert and lecturer of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA's seminars and training programs for the tourism sector. He serves UNDRR ARISE, the Private Sector Alliance for Disaster Resilient Societies, as network lead for Japan, and is a member of various government committees related to resilience and sustainability in the tourism sector. He serves as a visiting professor of the Center for Integrated Disaster Information Research, University of Tokyo, and International Tourism Management for Toyo University. Ladies and gentlemen, delivering this evening's JICA Chair Lecture, the first to be hosted in Barbados, please welcome Professor Masato Takamatsu.
Thank you, Christian. And His Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka and Professor Cleve Landis, did I pronounce it right? Sorry for this. The Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of West Indies, the Cave Hill campus, and distinguished speakers and all the guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a privilege and honor to share with you some of the knowledge and experience that I have had for the last 13, 14 years since we experienced major earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Now, my presentation today starts with the importance of the tourism resilience and preparedness for disaster risks to the tourism sector. Why tourism resilience? Because here in the Caribbean, the tourism is a major tool. Tourism is a pillar of the economy in most of the islands here. So look at the figures here. For example, Barbados, the contribution to GDP in 2020 was like 13.1% direct, and also in total in 41%. So it's really, really contributing largely to the country's economy, and likewise in the other countries in the Caribbean. And it's the dependence of the tourism in the Caribbean countries is focused to be 18.2% this year. Wow, maybe one of the largest industry in this region. So that means if something happens to this industry, this sector, it's not just the matter of the tourism-related, businesses or employees, but the impact expands to the entire society. On the other hand, the tourism sector is very vulnerable to disasters and crisis risks. We have what we call hydrometeorological hazards or extreme weathers like hurricane or the tropical storm, flood, just we have experienced yesterday. And in some places, we have the volcanoes, activities, and geological and geophysical hazards. And in addition to that, we have what we call human-induced crisis, including terrorism, fire, explosion, or even transportation accident. If something happens, not only within this region. Just imagine something happens in the U.S. and all the flights to the Caribbean has been suspended. What would happen to the industry? And our industry, the tourism industry, is so much dependent on the electric power. And if there is a wide area power failure, well, it's another disaster. Or we have, as we have experienced the last couple of years, epidemic and pandemic, or even food poisoning, those biological hazards risks are, of course, one of the potentials here. And whenever this kind of actual hazard takes place, always come with that is a perception and reputation crisis risks to the tourism, which means that people in the market, say in North America, Europe, and other countries, they are reluctant to visit the destinations that are affected by any kind of the hazards. And may not be, the reality may not be that so severe, but the reputation, perception that goes around with this, in internet, they tend to think that the impact is much, much larger than what actually is. And so always when something happens, the perception and reputation crisis hits tourism industry. So we have just looked back and see what kind of the disaster risks we have in the tourism sector. Then why tourism resilience? There are two major the purpose to have the tourism resilience. One is to ensure the safety and comfort of the visitors who happen to be affected by a disaster crisis event when they're visiting the destination. Just imagine, when you are visiting some other countries and happen to experience some disaster events, may it be weather events or earthquake or whatever. What kind of concerns do you have? Just imagine you were in Japan, where you cannot understand the language there, and there's a major earthquake strikes. Maybe you have concerns of your own safety, or safety of the family and friends who are accompanying with you. And maybe you start thinking, how can I get back to Barbados? Or travel to some other safer places. And maybe in Japan, you have the difficulty in communication. There are a lot of different information about the disaster itself and spreading around in Japan, but mostly in Japanese, which you may not understand. So you have a big trouble in understanding what's happening there. And maybe you have trouble with getting the food and water in the shelters. And that's to ensure the safety and comfort of the visitors when the disaster strikes. And also, the second one is to ensure the smooth and rapid recovery of the affected tourist destinations and tourism businesses. And this is one of the hotels in Jamaica, and the JICA. During the JICA training program, the members visit this property in February, and we have learned that it's on the process of the recovery from the last year's hurricane. This property was again hit by the hurricane and totally devastated. So, what can we do? What can the business do to ensure the quick recovery after the incident? We have seen that the tourism sector has a very huge contribution to the regional and community economy, national economy. But if it takes longer and longer for the tourism business to come back to the normal operation, there will be enormous loss of the opportunity loss in the industry, and that has enormous negative impact to the economy and also the living of the community people. So we really have to be prepared to recover the industry back to normal when something happens. And when I do this kind of consultation with the government people or private sector people, I often encounter with the question about why do you have to spend so much money to be ready to prepare for the potential disaster events that we don't know when it's going to happen. What is the return of the investment for this? Wow, that's a big question, and very frequent questions about the management of the companies, of the top of the government agencies. They keep asking me, why? Why do we have to do this? There are a lot of things that we need to do immediately, like marketing, international marketing, to attract more people, visitors come to these destinations, or maybe upgrade their property. Why resilience? And such investment includes building resilient infrastructure or proactive developing tourism crisis management plan or response manual, that's the software, and educating and training the employees to promptly react to the incident. But again, we cannot expect quick return on investment, or maybe the best thing is never get a return, meaning there's no disaster event. But I keep telling people, especially the management people, that if a crisis event affects your destination or your tourism business, the investment for the crisis management pays off at once. But you don't know when, or it might be never. The issue does. All right. Since the main purpose of the JICA chair is to share the experience of Japan with you here, so the next step I would like to share with you some of the tourism resilience efforts in Japan. And in 2011, we experienced the East Japan earthquake and tsunami, and that was a trigger to strengthen resilience of tourism sector in Japan. This was the tsunami that arrived in the northern part of Japan. Maybe the height of the tsunami was somewhere around something like 10 meters high. And during this tsunami, or after the tsunami, the tourism businesses played significant roles in sheltering affected people. This is the Tokyo, immediately after the earthquake. There are a lot of people on the streets just because all the public transportation were suspended their services. A lot of hundreds of thousands of people could not get home because all the trains were train services suspended. And this is a picture taken in one of the hotels in downtown Tokyo. They invited people on the street and have them stay in the lobbies, or they put away the table and chairs of the restaurant. It's another place they can stay as a shelter, or even the hallway, or it's stairs. But it's much better because at the time it was very cold outside. Maybe the temperature was somewhere around 5 to 10 degrees. You can't stay there for the overnight. And they were so happy that hotel invited them in and offered some hot drinks and also the power to charge their cell phones. There's another case of the hotel that contributed significantly to shelter the stranded people in the community. And that happened in the town of Minami Sanriku, which was one of the most severely impacted city in Japan when tsunami took place. This is the picture when the tsunami was arrived. And right here, we see some pole, and that's the 4-story local government building. And the whole building was underwater. And there you can see two people sitting on the pole. And they were the very few survivors of the event. And back of this, you can see there's a hospital, 5-story hospital. You know, all the patients and doctors, they went up to the top of the building to survive. And this happened, this is an actual event in the city of Minami Sanriku. And this is the city before the tsunami and after the tsunami. The same city. And there's one hotel. Just in this city that was situated on a huge rock. And the tsunami came to maybe the two lower floors, but not to the main lobby, which is you see the kind of the floor that looks like a black one, and that's a lobby floor. So there are some guest rooms below the lobby floor. They were affected, but above the lobby floor, nothing. And right here is the devastated community just near this picture. So everything in the community was just swept away. Now, all the community people rushed to this hotel because that's the only place in the highland. And the management of the hotel decided to shelter more than 800 people, community people, in the hotel as long as they can. And this hotel became the shelter community, the alternative community for the people there. So they had a community meeting in the hotel, or even the haircut parlor. They invited the haircut expert to their hotel and have the people, the community people in the shelter have their haircut, or they put on the bookshelf in the lobby, and they made a library in the hotel, all voluntary. And the kids lost the opportunity to have an education because the schools were also underwater. So instead, they used some of the larger rooms to make a study room for children. And the hotel invited some of the volunteer college students to teach the kids. So this is a case of what tourism business can do in a crisis situation. And also, I want to share with you some of the initiative in Okinawa, Japan. And Okinawa is situated far southwest of Japan. There are lots of small islands and 160 islands including 49 inhabited islands. Oh, it's just like Caribbeans. So it's like a Japanese Caribbean, and the climate is very much very similar. And this, the prefecture of islands is very prone to some of the potential disasters, including tsunami. Every 300 years, they experience major tsunami. Maybe the height is more than 20 meters high. 20 meters high. Just as high as maybe a 7-story building. And the last one came in 1776. So it's already 250 years more. Well, nobody can tell when it's the next one. So, and in addition to that, Okinawa is prone to typhoons, just like you're prone to hurricanes. And the picture on the left was one of the small islands that was hit by a major typhoon, and see that the power poles just fell down because of the gust. Or the right-hand picture is the capital, the prefecture capital city of Naha, when the typhoon hit, and you can see that the truck was flipped over with the gust. And they have this kind of typhoon maybe 3 times a year. And sometimes the typhoon stays there instead of moving around. Or sometimes even go up and come back and hit again. So, fully aware of those disaster risks, the prefecture government of Okinawa decided to make themselves more prepared for the tourism crisis. And this was a result of the very strong leadership of the governor of those days. And he keeps saying that being a safe and a resilient destination is an advantage over its competing destinations. It's not just a cost, it's an investment to be a competitive, to competitive destinations, to being safe. And such an initiative and the preparedness contributes to the sustainable development of tourism in Okinawa. Sustainability means they never cease to grow. You have to continue doing whatever disruption happens. So be prepared for any of the disaster. They can recover back to normal, to keep it going. So what we did, the prefecture did, was they actually dispatched the experts, including myself, a bit younger, to different major destinations in the prefecture, and quite a few people and organizations participated in these programs. And also they had an open seminar inviting more than 100 people to this big convention hall. And also they also had a smaller seminars in the smaller islands. And since Okinawa has a potential risk of the tsunami, they decided to put up the sea level elevation signboards all around the prefecture. When there is a tsunami alert and saying that 10-meter tsunami is expected. Just evacuate immediately. But people usually don't know what the elevation you were. Just, can you tell the elevation of this place from the sea level? Usually no. So the prefecture decided this is the kind of information that they really have to have when something happens, the tsunami alert is on. So they put all these kind of elevation signs everywhere on major destination close to the beaches, of course, and also in major cities. And in addition to those tsunami elevation signboards, they put the direction for the shelter. So whenever there is a tsunami alert, people can see, the elevation of where he is, and if there is a sign, the direction for the shelter, they can rush to the shelter. And also, in order to support the safe evacuation or safe activity, activities to make the visitors safer, they developed the handbook in 4 different languages. Japanese, English, Chinese, and Korean, about how to make them protect themselves in the case of major earthquake or typhoon, or even when the airplanes or the operations are suspended. How they can change their flight, or the best way to get to the earlier flight back home, and things like that. And this booklet is placed in every guest room of the hotels in Okinawa. So that when they check in and they found this booklet, safety booklet, and read it through and be prepared for any of the dangers and crises they may experience. And another thing we did was the Train the Trainers program. So there is a certain thing that the experts like myself can do because of the limited capacity. So we decided, the prefecture decided to train some of the industry people to be the expert, the trainers, Train the Trainers programs. So we had a full day program with the support from the University of Florida, where they have the Tourism Crisis Management Institute. And some of them, those who took this program, became an expert in tourism crisis management in Okinawa. And the prefecture developed Okinawa Tourism Crisis Management Master Plan. It's not just the tourism development plan. This is the plan specifically for the crisis management and resilience. And based on this management plan, there are a lot of activities going on, including the drills, inviting the international guests as well. And Japanese government had made some efforts as well, because in recent years we have almost every year we have the disaster events that severely impacts the tourism sector, including the typhoon, and earthquake, etc., etc. And one of the triggered event were the typhoon that hit Japan in 2018 and 2019. And 2018 typhoon, with the high tide, the Kansai International Airport that serves Osaka was flooded. And the operation was suspended for a couple of days. And what was worse, there were about 7,000 passengers and airline staff that were left on the airport island. It's situated on an artificial island off the coast, so they couldn't get back to the mainland for a couple of days. And it was very, very big trouble there. And the following year, in 2019, there was another major typhoon that hit Tokyo and the East Japan area. And that time, what happened was at the Narita International Airport, that's the second largest international airport in Japan, and serving Tokyo mostly. Well, the operation of the runway was suspended only for an hour. But the typhoon hit the major land transportation, trains, highways. So what happened was the runway reopened after an hour or so. There's a lot of aircraft that were waiting up in the air, just came down, land one after another. And when the passengers got off and went through the immigration, they found out that there's no way to go to the downtown Tokyo. No buses, no trains on the operation. So at the end of the day, about what I hear is more than 15,000 people were stranded in the terminal. So that really made the government, Japanese government, serious about the crisis management, and that really accelerated the government's efforts to upgrade the preparedness to ensure the safety and comfort of the visitors when they are impacted by the natural hazards, including early warning for the visitors and multi-language crisis communication media, and encouraging development of crisis response plan and temporary shelters for stranded visitors, and education training of the crisis response to the tourism business employees. And they included the necessity of developing tourism crisis management plan in the nation's tourism development master plan. So saying that the government will promote the formulation of tourism crisis management plans by local governments and tourism-related businesses together with the national government. It was clearly included in the master plan of the tourism development for the entire Japan. And last year, the government, together with the UN Tourism, organized World Tourism Resilience Summit in Sendai, and inviting the head of the tourism ministry of the neighboring countries, mostly from Asia and Pacific. Some are from the island countries in the Pacific as well. And they released the tourism the joint statement saying that the concept of tourism resilience holds critical importance, recognizing the interconnection between sustainability and resilience. And adding that, advanced preparation to prevent and minimize the impacts of the crisis diseases caused by natural hazards is of utmost importance. So this is agreed by the countries in Asia and Pacific. Another thing I want to share with you is a JICA's training program, which took place last year and this year. And last year, the program was titled Tourism Futures, Resilience, Sustainability, and Development. And this took place in Kingston, Jamaica. And this was a 3-day program, 2-day program, starting with a key presentation by Matsumura-san. He's somewhere in this room. Oh, he's gone. And myself. And there's another panel discussion of some of the speakers, the original speakers, and followed by sector-wide roundtable. And day 2 was the whole-day workshop, and theme was understanding potential tourism crisis impacts and challenges to be better prepared to reduce the risks and respond to the crisis. The reason we decided to put this as a theme is in order to be prepared for the crisis, we have to precisely understand what would be the impact to the visitors and tourism businesses when one disaster event strikes. For example, we can just generally say that the hurricane has a major impact to the tourism businesses, the tourism sector. But just precisely think, what would visitor experience, or what trouble, what difficulty they would experience when there's suspension of the air service. Oh, here's Matsumura-san back. He's the one who made a keynote presentation at the workshop. And what would tourism businesses experience when there is a tsunami or a high tide and things like that? So firstly, the groups, there were 5-6 groups there, and each group started to discuss potential risks and impacts to the tourism sector, followed by now in the discussion 1, they learned, they have discussed and came up with very clear idea what would be the actual impacts to the visitors and the businesses. Then they discussed how they can respond to these impacts one by one. And we only had just one day, so we could not come up with the total solution. But this was a real good trigger. So this is how we had a workshop. Each group discussed the potential crisis events and the actual impacts to the visitors and the businesses, and how they can respond to that. And the second year, this was February this year, 2025. We had another series of workshop titled Tourism Resilience Workshop, again in Jamaica. And these are the participants mostly. This gentleman is the general manager of Jake's Hotel that we have just seen, devastated by the Hurricane Marilisa. And 3 days workshop included the opening remarks from Professor Walla. He's a professor at University of the West Indies, Mona campus. And there was some presentation from the participants as well. And also there was the representative from the UN Tourism. So she made a presentation on what UN tourism is doing or expecting the tourism sector to be more resilient. And this was followed by three group works on the first day, identifying risks and impacts, and measures and actions to minimize the impact and effectively respond to the crisis event. And in order to do that, group work 3, how can we prepare for the measures? What do we have to do? Be better prepared for those countermeasures. And the second day, we made a visit to this hotel. And the final day, day 3, we did a recap, day 1 and day 2, and we made a reflection and tried to develop a draft BCP, business continuity plan, for the tourism sector, for the destination or for businesses, particular businesses. And this group work was followed by a presentation from of the representative of Sendai City. City of Sendai is also located in the heart of the northeastern part of Japan. It was also very severely impacted by the earthquake in 2011. And she shared what the city did for DRR, disaster risk reduction, and tourism resilience, and based on their past disaster experience. And final group work was to finalize the action plan they, worked on for the last 3 days, and all the action plans were presented. So this is an example of the workshop they have developed. That started with the impacts to the guests and visitors, and to the these are some of the ideas of the measures and action to ensure safety and relief of the guests and visitors, and proactive preparedness for the prompt response. So again, they start thinking about the potential risks and the potential impact that visitors and business may experience. Then the countermeasures, how they can address the impacts, and lastly, how they can prepare for those response. Each group has different, the scenario of some group worked on the destination, some group worked on the business, but the same idea, starting with the assessment of the disaster risk and impact, then the response measures and preparedness. They did a fantastic job, developing the action plan. And lastly, how can Caribbean states address the vulnerability to disaster risks impacting the tourism sector? First thing I really want to emphasize is let's prioritize tourism resilience in tourism development strategy. This is the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport Mission, and mission statement saying that to facilitate the sustainable development of Barbados tourism industry through sound policies, strategic research, marketing product and infrastructure development. But I would love to see if they put this to facilitate the sustainable development and resilience of Barbados tourism industry, prioritizing the tourism resilience in their policy. And once they have decided to prioritize and work on the resilience, let's start with the disaster risk assessment that just the participants of the workshop did. So these are some of the example of the risk identification to the visitors for, when earthquake takes place or hurricane. So it's not just the direct risks, but just imagine if there are because of the hurricane, there's a power failure that's still going on in Jamaica, right? And when there's power failure, what would happen? Well, what would not happen? We can't have lighting, no air conditioning, or no water. Why? There's still supply of water. Just imagine this building. If there's no electric power, the water does not go up to the water tank on the ceiling. If there is still a water supply without electricity, you can't get the water in the buildings. No elevators or no Wi-Fi. Maybe internet itself is alive, but you need to use the routers to get the Wi-Fi, the signal. But routers work on electricity. So without electricity, you don't get the information. And your cell phone, iPhone, maybe in an hour or so, you see a red battery mark there, meaning the battery is out. And without power, how can it charge? So there are lots of things that impact the visitors and also the businesses. So again, assessment means precisely imagine, use your imagination, think what would happen, what are the negative experiences you may have, the visitors may have, or business have. And once you have come up with the potential impacts to the visitors and businesses, then start thinking about response plans and manuals. But don't worry, you already have some excellent tools here in the Caribbean. This is the Multi-Hazard Risk Management Guide developed by CTO. Have you seen this? And also they have the tourism recovery dashboard. So you don't have to start from the scratch. There's already excellent tools. Maybe what you have to do is to customize this, the tools into your context, the destination context or business context. But you don't have to work from the scratch. And preparedness. Well, once you have those manual ready, those are the very strong preparedness tools. But what the important thing is, when you develop a fantastic, perfect manual of 100 pages, And if the manual sits on the principal's bookshelf, no way. The next thing you really have to think about is share this with all the staff in the facility, in your business, and train them, educate them. And for them, you don't have to have the whole 100-page manual. Just have each of them what they have to do in an emergency. Just 1 page, 2 pages, checklist, that's enough. But be sure to train them, drill them. And that's the way we are, and I hope this presentation will be a very small step for you to start seriously thinking about the tourism resilience. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Takamatsu, for sharing such rich content for us this evening. And so we're going to go straight into our moderated activities, and guiding us through this next segment is Dr. Janice Cumberbatch. Dr. Cumberbatch is a senior lecturer here at the UWITV campus in the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, or CERMES, specializing in sustainability studies. And her role, of course, is to steer us towards some measure of enlightenment tonight. Yes, right? And later she will have a discussion with you, Professor Takamatsu, and after that she will invite the rest of the panelists to join you at the table. So, Dr. Cumberbatch, the floor is yours.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Let me try that again. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you're still with us. Good, good. We've heard a lot already, and I am going to ask the Prof a couple of questions, but truthfully, I want to hear from the people in the room whom I could not see because they sat me at the front. And I tried really hard to look back, but it was hard to do. So I'm going to ask the Prof a couple of very quick questions, and then I'm going to ask my panelists to quickly join me. I'll introduce you very quickly, and boy, do I have some questions for you lot. So, Professor, thank you ever so much for your keynote presentation. It was engaging because I heard somebody behind me at one point in time say, "I like that idea. I like that idea." And that was actually a response to something exceedingly practical, which were the sea level signs. Like, that makes so much sense, because one would really like to know risk level and how easy is it to really do that. It does not take very long to put up some signs. So that's actually really, we're taking that. Thank you very much. But I'd like to ask you a question. I appreciate the fact that you went through with us the experiences that you had in Japan, the tsunamis, the earthquakes that led to this response, to this change. And one of the questions that I have for you is, could you tell us, specifically from your tourism stakeholders, and I want to define my tourism stakeholders as not just the owners of capital in terms of someone who may have the capacity to own a hotel or a restaurant, but I also want to talk about those people who make tourism work, the small sector people, the persons on the street, the vendors. So can you perhaps share with us the shift that you have experienced or observed in terms of how they were pre-2011 to now? What are some of the key things that you would say demonstrate that they have brought on, like they have literally decided resilience is the thing that we are going for?
Thank you very much for such a wonderful question, and it's really goes to the heart of this. Yes, when I talk about the management, that I don't mean the owner of the property, the operators, the people at the customer front. They are the only ones who can help the guests or visitors, evacuate from the places to a safer shelter or safer places, or in the case of tsunami, higher land. And in Japan, when we discussed the disaster response, we often say personal help and maybe collaborative help and the government help. And in the case of the tourism sector, we cannot, frankly speaking, we cannot expect the government, the public help at the onset of the disaster event, because we can't expect the tourism, ministry to run to the beaches and evacuate the visitors there, right? You have other roles in such an occasion. So who can then do those things? Just as you said, the people in the front, including the guides or drivers or vendors, or of course hotel staff. And the first thing we need to do is have them the mindset that they're the forefront of the tourism resilience, and be prepared to help the visitors escape from any of the dangers and risks they may experience. And I showed the picture of the hotel in Tokyo. They invited the people who were stranded on the street, and that decision was not made by the general manager of the hotel. Personally, I knew the general manager of the hotel, and they asked, well, you did a fantastic job in inviting the people in the street. They invited more than 1,500 people there. And he asked me, hey, Masato, it was not me who decided this. It was the assistant manager at the reception who made decision and only reported to me. We have decided to do this. So it's like that. Mm-hmm. You don't have to ask you don't have time to, have the meeting with the senior people. And it's empowering the front people to do the things in the emergency situation. That's one of the key.
Thank you very much. No, I'm very, very conscious at the time, and I also don't want to prevent the rest of you from having a chat with our guest here. But I have one other question, and then I'm going to invite our other panelists. Now, there was training in the region, in Jamaica, and you showed us evidence of that. One of the things I always wonder about is, what is the expected change? If I went to Jamaica now, and I looked at or spoke to the people who attended those sessions, what are you expect them to be doing at this point? What is it that we should see differently from them? What is the indicator that the training has had the impact that we've invested in?
Well, this is the case of hurricane, and hurricane is something that you can foresee in advance, maybe in a couple of days, and that means that the training also included early warning.
Mm-hmm.
And early warning not only means that there is the hurricane coming to the people, the community people, but especially to the visitors. Warning means encouraging them to return home before the hurricane strikes. And that's good for the visitors' safety, and also the safety of the business employees. Because if there's no visitors there, the guests there, you don't have to be at the site. You can be at home and look after your family, or they have less risk of, they have less work to look after the stranded guests after the hurricanes. Mm-hmm. So encourage them. The early warning means encourage them to return home, or to those who were planning to visit Jamaica to postpone their, so that if there's less visitors left in the destination that is to be hit by the disasters, there's much lower risks.
Thank you very much for that. So let me have our colleagues join us now, and I'm going to introduce each of you and ask you to join us. So let me start with our architect. And of course, Naomi, I'm really wondering how we're designing for these mega hurricanes, because you realize that the principal came and threw down. He basically came and told us things bad. He said it bad. And the deputy principal said, very bad. And he gave us the numbers. So since things bad, I am inviting Naomi Tavernier, who is a Dominican-born architect who has lived and worked in Barbados since she achieved her professional bachelor's in architectural degree from the Iowa State University. Over the years, she's worked on residential and various commercial and civic projects, and she has fostered an interest in the expression of the juxtaposition of structure and environment, very critical. She has her LEED Green Associate accreditation since 2010, and she's been a registered architect since 2016. She's actually served as the president of the Barbados Institute of Architects since between 2021 and 2023, and she was on their council 6 consecutive years. A serious advocate for architecture, she is a part of the publications committee. She was the chair. She edited the CAD magazine. She is the local rep for the Barbados Institute of Architects to the Commonwealth Association of Architects, now the Sharing and Partnership Board. She also is very keen on diversity and equity in terms of women leaders through sustainability, humanity, and empowerment in the construction industry, absolutely critical, and she's an active member who works with children. Currently working with Gillespie and Steele Associates since 2023, let us welcome Naomi Tavernier. So she has the hard question of how we build in to deal with the stress. Shifting gender, we're going to go to my colleague from the Ministry of Tourism, Mark Durant. Mark is currently with the Ministry of Tourism. He is, at this point in time, the Director of Research and Planning, and his role is in developing tourism strategy, promoting sustainable tourism practices, and he has been a member of the Barbados delegation to several regional tourism conferences. His role, as you can imagine, as Director of Research and Planning is absolutely critical. He has a strategic involvement in the development of our policy, and he has worked at the regional level with the Caribbean Tourism Organization. Mr. Durant, I heard your permanent secretary say that we're going to have an absolutely critical value chain study coming up soon which of course can identify areas for strengthening and resilience. So I hope you can share a little bit more in terms of where we're strong and where we might need to strengthen in the industry. Do join us at the head table.
Thanks, Mark.
They say a youth shall lead us, and of course at the University of West Indies, we are all about developing young minds, and we have some brilliant young people. And this evening, I want to introduce to you a very dynamic Barbadian youth leader in the form of Joshua Harris. Joshua is an advocate for sustainable development and youth empowerment. He's currently a student of political science here at the Cave Hill campus, and he serves as the president of the UWI-STAT Vice Chancellor's Ambassador Corps, which is the official student representative body of the Vice Chancellor's office across the regional university. Since he's been in office in June 2025, he's championed several initiatives to strengthen Caribbean regionalism, civic engagement, and youth participation in regional discourse. He has recently, in August, been appointed as Barbados' youth representative to the United Nations at the Food and Agricultural Organization, where he lends his voice to advancing global discussions on food security, climate resilience, and sustainable livelihoods for small island developing states. Please welcome Mr. Harris to the head table. Mr. Harris, if you look around the room, many of us are going gray, son. This is going to be your mantle to carry. Come and talk to us about your plans for our future. Now, we all know that we had an event in Barbados because, you see, there was not just talk about the troubles we're having, but the permanent secretary said, and those of you who are old enough in Barbados remember that we had a phase where we would sing a lot of long talk. The permanent secretary said, well, the principal said that is a problem, and we don't want no lot of long talk. Consequently, we decided to have this event, and just to prove that this event was critical, we had a flood yesterday. Because we're dramatic, right? And we're so dramatic that that flood impacted on us in several ways, including not allowing one of our guests or speakers to be present tonight. However, the wonders of technology allows my dear colleague, Dr. Sherman Roberts, to join us online. You saw her on screen a little while ago. She will rejoin us on screen now. She's a senior lecturer here at the Sajako Cave Hill School of Business and Management. And she recently served as the interim director of the School of Graduate Studies and Research. In addition to teaching, Dr. Roberts is actively involved in shaping public discourse on regional tourism through her service on several boards, working on panel discussions and delivering keynote addresses. She's previously been the chair of the Tourism Advisory Council in Barbados and the deputy chair of the Barbados Tourism Product Authority. She was also the first chairperson of the Tobago Tourism Agency, where she led the establishment of the organization and oversaw the creation of the award-winning Tobago Beyond Ordinary brand. Having published several books on tourism, including the Contemporary Caribbean Tourism Concepts and Cases, which is widely used in classrooms at the university and by industry leaders, it is my pleasure to ask our colleague, Dr. Roberts, to join us this evening. So as they say, we are well met, and I kind of told you, Dr. Roberts, we're training up the next set, so you need to bring the perspective on how we're dealing with this need for ongoing technical assistance, this ongoing capacity building. It can't be sporadic. We can't just rely on a project here or there and train some people, train some trainers. We have to be ongoing. So how are we dealing with that? So now I've advised you all of your assignments. I'm going to ask Naomi, if she does not mind, to lead off with your remarks this evening to our audience. Just give some opening remarks.
Good evening, and welcome to everybody here. I know there are lots of people I don't know all the names of, so I just want to say yes, all the protocols that have been established. This is a very important topic where we're talking about tourism resilience, as it has been said before. This is effectively a huge part of our livelihood in the Caribbean. And when we speak about tourism resilience, yes, we are speaking about those who come to our shores, but in terms of my aspects of this, which is in the construction industry and business field, when we're speaking about tourism resilience, we're speaking about these buildings that make people feel safe. And so when we speak about buildings, we're not only speaking about tourists, but we're also speaking about our people. And so from my part, I think a big part of this has to do with how we use and implement building codes. I think that is a part that is missing to a certain extent. When we think about larger buildings, we think about building codes. As architects, engineers, we use codes. We have to think about who's designing our buildings, how they're designing our buildings, and even where it comes to our smaller buildings, our residential buildings, we also need to look at implementing codes into how that infrastructure, how those buildings are constructed and put together. We have to be prepared for this this reaction, which allows us to be resilient. We have to be proactive as opposed to being responsive. And so I think it is a matter of spending the time to develop as well as to build better, so that we are prepared for the rapid response. The rapid response only happens if you have strong existing infrastructure.
Thank you so very much for that. Very, very true. And so I'm now going to ask Mr. Durant, Mark, to give his opening comments.
Good evening, everyone. From the perspective of the Ministry of Tourism, we all know that tourism is Barbados' business. And therefore, resilience should be a back end of that business to ensure the business continues. We've been doing, I think, generally as a nation, we've been doing very well recognizing our vulnerability, having a national emergency management framework on the cards. That framework allows for the dissemination of responsibility across various agencies. There are emergency operating centers based on the type of the sector. So there's a tourism emergency management center. That is what I will speak on. In that arrangement, there are about 14 agencies who are every year planning the immediate response to hazards and climate risks in Barbados. We have the technology, we sit and we meet, we do training, but all the training, all the preparation, if a Category 5 hits, like what Melissa did, if we had wind to the water yesterday, there is absolutely no preparation for that as it happens. But I will say, if we have more technology, if we have more bravery in understanding how the impacts do affect us, if we had something to tell us the velocity of the water coming down Holtown or Spikestown or down Bathsheba, the structural integrity of the bridges, which all failed yesterday, that helps us now to build retaining structures better, to start doing breakwater building so we can reduce the velocity and therefore minimize the impact. If we had that water headed straight to hotels yesterday on the coast, that would have moved the bottom floor. Right, so it's urgent and it's imperative that we pay close attention to our management of our tourism assets, and that will be my opening statement.
Thank you. The batsmen are doing well opening. Let me go to Mr. Harris, Joshua. I have a youngster in my house just about your age who told me that we've all gotten it wrong, we've messed it all up, and it's now up to y'all to fix it. So I'm taking my licks, I'm admitting that we are responsible for getting it wrong, but now we have to fix it. What's the youth perspective on what we really need to be doing? How are we creating a space? Are we creating enough space for the youth to play their role in building resilience?
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Cumberbatch, and a pleasant good evening to all here tonight. Are we creating the space? I would say that we're making a good start. I'm here on the panel tonight, so I do believe that is pivotal. But how do we engage in sustainable tourism or resilient tourism? Because it is critical to preserving the tourism product and also to building resilience in local economies. And I've come up with a few measures that we can look to implement to achieve those two things. Number one, increasing the education of the public and also tourism actors. And I will expand upon these points later on in the discussion. But the increased education of the public would allow them to, enable them to fulfill their part in fulfilling the agenda and educating the tourism actors, the owners of the hotels, etc., as Professor Takamatsu would have spoken to, educating them on the SDGs and how we can build our tourism products sustainably. Further, I do believe, as I said, to build resilience in local economies, that we need to expand our tourism product beyond the traditional sectors and include new sectors like digital tourism, medical tourism, sports tourism, etc. Further to that, we need to strengthen our local supply chains, and also that will decrease the reliance on global supply chains which are subject to shocks, etc. So as I said, I will expand upon these points, but I do believe that yes, we are creating this space because I'm here tonight, and these are some measures that we can do to achieve resilient tourism.
Thank you very much for those initial responses, and I'm already hearing Mr. Durant in the back of his head about to respond to some of what has been said, having had conversations with him before. Dr. Roberts, so glad that you're here with us. So, bring that educational perspective for me, please. The previous speaker talked about the need for more education, actually.
Thank you, Chair, and good night to the panel and good night to the audience. I certainly want to thank the professor for bringing greetings and for updating us on resilience and that whole scenario in Japan. You know, you often read about it, I've read about it, but it was really lovely of him to incarnate the experience in the lessons that he shared with us. I do wonder about tourism as an industry because, of course, tourism stands at the crossroads of both resilience and sustainability. And one can sometimes argue that tourism compromises both resilience and sustainability through its very existence. For example, it trades on the natural environment. It trades on the cultural environment. It sometimes builds on pristine the industries, the accommodation sector in particular, the visitor attraction sector, might certainly be building on on coastal lands and pristine places. So we are asking the industry that sometimes might have a degrading factor to also be resilient, and that requires significant education. And one of the things about tourism is a level of complexity. So you're speaking about scale geographically, so urban to rural. You're speaking about scale in terms of also the sector. You have all of these sectors playing a part. And you're also speaking about size. So how do you, like size of businesses? So how do you get the small businesses that often the majority of the tourism industry to recognize its need or their need to be resilient, to build capacity in the event of any kind of disaster? So that to me is crucial. And the question has become, well, based on a recent study that I would have done with small tourism businesses, the critical factor for small tourism businesses is really to do that continuous education, but not where we are at as policymakers, but where they are at as small tourism businesses. So if we want to build a resilient industry, we have to take the education and the training to them, and we have to allow for an approach that is synergistic, both top-down as well as bottoms-up, because there's some indigenous knowledge that they bring to the table that sometimes we often omit in our resilience strategy. So I want to stop there, and I have a lot of questions for the professor, maybe like the audience, but I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much, Dr. Roberts. I'm sure among ourselves up here, we could keep this conversation going for quite a while, but I'm very conscious of the fact that you guys stayed after work, came after work to have a conversation with us. So, who's the first brave person to come to that microphone and begin talking to us tonight? And believe me, if you don't hustle, we will keep this conversation going. There's not going to be a problem. I have lots of questions. Sherman has lots of questions. All we ask you to do when you come to the microphone is say who you are, the organization you represent, and talk to us. Yes, it is on.
Good night, everyone. My first question, sorry, I'm Dr. Kurt Douglas. I'm the Director for the Center for Biosecurity Studies here at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. I just saw something very interesting. I saw that Sandals in Jamaica just announced that they're going to keep all of their staff on payroll for the duration, whether or not these employees are at closed or open resorts. My question from that is, how do you get this type of behavior in the private sector, within the tourism industry, to have a domino effect? The professor had mentioned that there were many instances in Japan where hotels were open, they become more or less shelters, functioning a social good within the country. My question is, how do you replicate that within the private sector that's primarily driven by profit? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Douglas. Does anyone want to have a try at that, one of our tourism specialists?
Well,
go ahead.
Jonathan, if you want me to go ahead. Yes, Kirk, that is an important question, and it goes to the root of the scale that I was just referring to. You have large businesses that have the capacity to be able to be as resilient as Sandals because, of course, they have put in the investment that is needed. They have built systems to ensure that this can happen. But then you have a large, very, very large, over 80% of the businesses that dominate the tourism industry are small and medium-sized. So the extent to which you are asking them to do that would be difficult. So I think Sandals have done their investment in there to know that they can, keep their staff on board. They also understand that part of the economic resilience has to do with having trained staff, knowledgeable staff, informed staff, and the extent to which they're willing to lose them, the trade-off would certainly undermine their economic resilience, if you're speaking about resilience from, an economic perspective.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roberts. Anyone else wants to add anything or follow on with a different perspective from the panel? If not, is there an audience member who wants to have a statement? Well, while y'all are getting brave enough to talk, I would like to hear a little bit more about Joshua's ideas. He said he had several. So lay them on us.
Well, just three, not several.
There's several.
But as we discussed just now, the education of the tourism actors and those involved in the tourism industry is pivotal. not only will it increase, quote unquote, their market value and their worth to the industry, but it will ensure that the models that are developed for tourism and for building out businesses in our region, and particularly in Barbados where we are, that these models keep preservation of countries' resources and development at the core. And therefore, when we build out a resilient infrastructure, we become resilient to these shocks and natural disasters. Further to that, I spoke to expanding tourism beyond the traditional means. And what this will enable us to do is to reduce overdependence on one market, so that when the tourism market reduces, or when the global sectors reduce their
Okay, so our online audience, we realize that you're with us and you can hear very well. Go ahead, Joshua.
Okay, so when global markets reduce their demand for a particular type of tourism, it ensures that the country can still earn income and does not suffer a reduction or a significant reduction to fund or healthcare or education and other social services. And I do believe that we must also link our tourism to agriculture, to fisheries, to cultural and creative industries, and manufacturing as well. And in so doing, what we do is, again, reduce reliance on imports so that we spend less to fund imports, and we can focus our tourism earnings on building the tourism product and our economies and communities, and building them resiliently. And so those are the ideas which I wish to present here tonight, and I hope to have an engaging discussion on them.
Thank you. I'm sure you will, because we now already have at the microphone in the audience our Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore, eminent economist. So let's hear what you have to say, sir.
I guess I don't have to introduce myself.
No, I thought I would do it for
Thank
you.
you so much for that, Janice. I have sort of one question, but two components. What role does insurance play in this discussion? And to what extent is insurance a feasible option when tourism-dependent islands are being priced out of this market? Mm-hmm. And then secondly, for our architect on the panel as well, to what extent is the design something that we take into account when we're designing hotels for, say, just being so close to the coastline? Is that something that we also take into account when we're designing our hotels?
Thank you. So let's have the architect first.
Okay. Yes. So it is very much about how we build, and how we build starts with how we design. So when we speak about buildings that are housing the public, we definitely want to ensure that you have the professionals in place who are using the basis, as I said before, of building codes and building for the environment that we exist in. Now, we know, obviously, now with Category 5 hurricanes and these sorts of things, you don't have codes that speak to those levels of storms, but there are things that we can do. So we build the best that we can. More so, the architects can design what they're supposed to, but ultimately where we fall short in the region is within construction and with cutting corners for costs. So we have a level that is missing where we have to deal with enforcement to ensure that what is being constructed and built actually meets the codes, the design requirements. That when we select alternatives, those alternatives still have certain levels, certain base requirements of performance value. So you have the aspect of design for the building itself. You also have the aspect of the planning. And the planning is looking at the siting of the structure, whether it is too close to the coast, whether it is being built on really great agricultural land. So it is this specific site, it is also the urban planning. Not every hotel has to be on the coast. As we said before, I am from Dominica. You have beautiful beaches, you have inlands too. So, I mean, people come to an island to experience a tourism product. Yes, Barbados is known for its beaches, but Barbados is more than its beaches. I think if we look at our islands as a whole and we think about what we have to offer as opposed to what people tell us they want, we create the attraction, we put buildings and we develop a tourism product to introduce our islands to people in a way that we want to. And that way, we also help to deal with sort of not giving all, as Dr. Roberts said, not giving all of our coastline, you know, so you can get some of it, but we look at how to create balance while we also grow that tourism industry. So yes, the design matters, and we do design to codes, we do design for the conditions that exist, and when you design and build to those codes, then yes, the insurance and the insurance companies, they feel more comfortable in insuring you because they know that you've made an effort to actually have something that has a certain level of resilience.
Thank you very much. And I do see that the questions were linked and you joined them very nicely towards the end. But I wonder if, Mark, I could ask you to come in at this point on the issue of insurance a little more, because I know it is a concern. It's not just a concern in the tourism sector, it is also a concern in the fishery sector, which, as the principal pointed out, in Barbados was significantly hit. And Beryl was not even onshore, she was offshore. Now that's a wider discussion for another time, but the issue of insurance is a key one for us if we're talking resilience. So might I ask you to speak on that?
I'm trying to get this Japanese term right. It's Ai no Naka no Kawazu Takai wo Shirazu. So, it was good. It was good. Thank you.
And
so
subtitles?
A fish,
Subtitles? Please, subtitles.
A fish
for
in the
that.
well knows nothing of the sea.
Okay.
It's very important when we talk about silos and breaking silos and the power of economies of scale. Now, for a large hotel with a 50-year investment in Barbados, you're looking for your return on investment in 50 years. Your insurance premiums will be high because you're a large hotel. There's absolutely no wiggle room for you to say, I want to include a component for disaster if anything major happens. The fortunate thing for Barbados is that we have a very good prime minister. She's been able to create this debt for swap climate and this arrangement where we can tap into our natural sector to reduce the debt burden, especially when there are force majeure clauses in the big deals. But if we don't have that collective spirit, if we can have these small hotels come together and say we want to insure ourselves as a collective, that provides them greater negotiating power and greater possibility of return in the event something bad happens. I mean, this is an uncertain area, but is the Jamaican insurance industry going to bail out the Jamaican tourism sector? What is that experience there? I think whatever experience there is going to be very instructive for us in terms of how we actually reform the insurance industry. There's a level of community and collaboration among our smaller players. We have the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, but we have the small hotels of Barbados. And the small hoteliers, they don't have kitchens, you know, it's a lot of facility they don't have. So to ask them to be tourism resilient and to ask them to put 20% of their facility costs into preventative maintenance or preventative construction, tourism construction, they're not able to do that. You know, so this is a stark reality for these small hoteliers who are the fastest to help you rebuild your tourism sector. The Airbnb, they're also the fastest to help you rebuild your tourism sector. And the Airbnb, they've taken on that personal risk of their own. So now to have a public liability in there now for a climatic event, you know, you really need some format and some collectivity in there with the players. Yeah, so I think without that, you're not going to see the insurance industry being able to bail out. I think the Prime Minister was actually talking about having them reduce the premiums so that there's more wiggle room at the back end. You know.
Thank you very much. Go ahead,
Can I
please.
rebut?
Of course. It's a discussion. Go for it.
So I understand what you're saying, but to a certain extent with that latter statement, I do disagree. I understand that it is difficult, yes, when you think about those added costs for constructing and building for resilience when you are a small player, as you said. I'm going to put it out there. People may hate me, but I think the cost of construction in Barbados is just ridiculously too high. I don't believe it has to be that way. But you live in an environment and an economy, and sometimes, you know, if you want to build it cheaper, you probably have to do it yourself. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of the fact that there are certain additional costs to it, I think we still do not have the privilege of ignoring certain baselines of safety where it comes to construction. And there are costs to achieving those baselines. There's a lot of construction that is below that baseline, and I don't think that is acceptable. So we have to find ways to ensure that everything meets a minimum baseline for safety and security where it comes to construction in Barbados and in the region.
Thank you. Very valid point. Please, do introduce yourself.
Thank you. So I'm Kim Quimby. I'm a medical practitioner. I'm at the George Allen Chronic Disease Research Center, so I know very little about tourism. But I just want to jump into that conversation there. You seem to be having different opinions, you know, about who needs, how much you need, what level you need at. So are there any metrics for determining who might need a crisis management strategy, and what is it based on? Is it based on how much % GDP you have? Is it based on how big your hotel is? Is it based on, you know, if you are a locally owned? How do you decide? And I guess you might have different answers. You know, what are your metrics for measuring risk and determining who needs that strategy?
I see that Dr. Roberts is back with us. Do you have a response to this, or do one of my panelists present here want to respond to Dr. Quimby?
Well, if we start with the notion that tourism is an integrated, multi-sector industry, and that any disaster or risk or crisis that affects the industry affects everyone, then I think we have to start from the baseline that all players involved in the industry should be sort of protected from these impacts. So we might have to have a scaled system where if we start with the smallest player, they have a plan that speaks to their peculiarities. Because certainly if you take a restaurant, Kim, or if you take a hotel, they might have certain commonalities, but then they might have distinctions. So we could start with a scaled approach and so build up. But certainly every player in the industry, I would say, should have a crisis management plan. And to respond to the Deputy Principal's question, I know that there is a Caribbean catastrophe risk insurance facility that is accessible to the regional tourism industry. Of course, as you've pointed out, there is a sense in which the larger players, especially the multinational companies, can participate in CRIF much more than the medium and small enterprises. So it sort of tells me that resilience as a concept is not normative at all, that we have to recognize that within the concept of resilience, there can be winners and losers depending on where the bulk of the resources tend to flow. So governments, there's a need for governments maybe to step in and assist those smaller players and medium-sized players in building their capacity. Equally, these players must recognize their vulnerabilities. And their vulnerabilities can be economic, their vulnerabilities can be informational. They might not be accessing the information that their tourism association or their small business association is providing for them, and therefore they're left in the dark. So when there's a disaster, they are unable to respond. So comorbidities must be recognized as we try to build resilience and lessen vulnerabilities.
Thanks for that. Noe?
I would say that this scale already exists. We have different metrics that we use when we design for ourselves privately and when we design for the public. If we're speaking about the tourism industry, we are speaking about the public. We are speaking about not just ourselves, but an international public that recognizes an international standard. If we want to be on the world standard, we have to recognize the minimum baselines. The minimum baselines come from whether it's the International Building Code, which is synonymous to your American codes. We do have our code in Barbados, but it's not been formally legislated. It is originally, the 2013 edition is in draft form. So when we design for larger buildings, to be honest, a lot of the architects refer to the International Building Code. Yes, we look at the Barbados Building Code as well. That's not to say that we ignore that at all. We look at that, but we are looking at relationships between what is expected internationally. If I'm traveling from the States or from the UK, I'm coming down, I am expecting that I'm in a building that has fire safety, that has emergency evacuation, that can withstand a certain level of storm. Now, we're also speaking about different levels of players, but at the end of the day, they are still providing accommodations for tourists, whether they be local or international. So as I said, there has to be baselines. And the same way how you see in Florida, they're using their codes and they're saying, okay, we're getting this level of storm now, so this is the minimum that you have to design to, and there's a whole document, it's not guesswork, that exists. We can do that for our islands. We can say, okay, this island is more prone to hurricanes at this level, this one is hit more frequently, this one gets earthquakes. Those baselines exist and they need to be enforceable. And at the end of the day, I understand, again, when we talk about the different levels of players, so you start with your baseline, but then it's additive. So you say, maybe our baseline is a Category 3 hurricane because Barbados doesn't get hit as often as another island. And then you say, okay, my facility can support or protect you up to this level of storm. If I know there's a greater storm, a greater threat, a greater risk coming, then I have a system in place that I will evacuate you to this shelter. It can be a paired solution, but you have to start with a baseline so people can know that they're coming and they have a minimum level of safety that they're expecting in the event that they cannot leave, they cannot go home. They're feeling insecure because they're not in the comfort of where they're from.
Thanks very much. We have another member of the audience. Sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair or Moderator. Damon Cole, Dean, Faculty Medical Sciences. I reflect on the topic of the panel and even the lecture this afternoon, and it speaks about tourism resilience. And I hear about, shocks and threats brought about by natural disasters, etc. But what has been missing from the conversation, and sorry if I come across as being somewhat negative, is the resilience in the people who work within the sector. And because of my medical background, I would like to know, what are we doing to build resilience among the people, especially the health of the people, especially within a space where we know that chronic non-communicable diseases, among other health threats, plague our territories. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Are you looking at me?
No, I'm not looking at you. I'm actually looking at the panel, and
No,
Mark is responding.
Yeah, well, I'll try to respond on behalf of the Department of Emergency Management, but again, you probably can go as far back as the Central Emergency Relief Organization. Barbados has had a good, long history in disaster preparedness. I think, I didn't know that. It came from MTW, and we are part of the emergency response system, but I didn't know it was so comprehensive until they went to tourism, and until we went through the Hurricane Beryl, and we actually saw the operating center in place, and we saw the guys from MTW using the pumps, and we saw the villagers coming out and helping, and it was a whole national effort. There's just something that goes in a Barbadian after an event to their responsibility to the event, if they know. So there's over 200 people who respond after events as part of the National Emergency Management System, and then the communities, if you saw the videos coming out with the communities, first it was the worry, and then it was how we could fix it. You're seeing it in Jamaica now, how we can, after the war, this is the what next we can do, right? So I think there's naturally an ingrained sense of resilience after the initial shock of what just happened, and that is reinforced by good systems, good governmental systems and non-governmental systems supporting that effort, that post-event effort.
I'm going to come to you now, Dr. Douglas, but I'm going to throw that back at my medical colleague a little bit, because what I heard him say was that when bad things happen, which the principal said, all of it is hoist with Georgie bundle and work hard. But we're working hard with heart disease. We're working hard with diabetes. We're working hard with stress. I can say stress, right? It's medically accepted. Thank you very much, Professor Landis. Consequently, Kurt, just please, because this is critical. The resilience is coming down to our people, and our people are unhealthy. We're running campaigns for the fact that we want to stop sweeties in schools because children are obese, right? People dropping like flies. Yeah. And when we put them under more stress, because it's brilliant what Mark just described, they go dead. What are you doing? How are you all integrated in the system is what I am saying. How is the medical profession helping to build the resilience? What is your role in this discourse?
Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for pointing it back at me. So within this space, I see an opportunity for us to, be innovative in terms of, how we think, and think about the people that we depend on who work, extensively in the sector. So I would like to proffer ideas or concepts that will speak to helping to improve health and wellness among the workforce, ensuring that there are wellness programs built within small, medium-sized, and also large operating entities, ensure that there is a strong sensitization program in these resorts and among other operators about some of the threats that could potentially plague persons working within that tourism space, especially in areas that are maybe prone to specific public health threats, especially in rural areas where there's a dependence on, say, spring, rivers, and other forms of, or sources of natural ingredients that help to embellish or improve the tourism product itself. So there are other ideas. At the university, what we have been able to do in some instances, like for example, I could, reflect on my own experience. I have an interest in natural products, but I have a large interest in health and wellness. And we have been able to work with NGOs and other governmental agencies in developing standards that can help to maintain a certain level of health and wellness within those spaces. But of course, it could start with simple ideas of just encouraging, healthy activities, ensuring that some staff in some of these resorts, are first aid trained and can help themselves, but could also help other persons, in times of need. And just being aware of some of the threats that exist around us and hazards that could potentially be biological, but it could also be other types of hazards that they really should know to protect themselves and protect the persons that they serve. Thank you.
Okay, so the next set of assignments for the students will be tourism and health practical applications. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Kurt, sorry, do join us.
No, that's quite all right. Thanks very much for all the discussion. I wanted to throw a different light on the conversation. as we are speaking rather on tourism resilience, I think of tourism in my field in biosecurity as a vulnerability. Because yes, we need the economic power of tourism, but the movement of people coming into any destination brings with it inherent risk. We saw this in full flow in 2020, where every tourist destination across the world were impacted not by a hydrometeorological event, but an infectious disease, a pandemic, COVID-19. I don't think any of us want to get there again, but the stark reality is we will likely end up there again. And my question is, what are we doing to make the tourism industry resilient against those types of threats? I think within the Caribbean, we are a long way away from that. Professor mentioned about early warning systems. We need better early warning systems to understand infectious disease threats coming into our destinations that will then overrun our already burdened healthcare systems that are struggling to cope with the run-of-the-mill situation. The dean of the medical faculty just spoke about the chronic disease situation that we have in the Caribbean. So I think we need to take a systems thinking perspective, not looking at linear issues, but really kind of zooming out and take a holistic view of how we can embed this resilience in tourism. Because if we don't have health security resilience, the reality is, as we saw with COVID-19, this tourism, we have really strong buildings. We have really strong buildings, but we have sick people. And that will still erode the tourism industry. So I would like to broaden the discussion a bit more into those types of issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely fact that he asked the question and answered it as well. You noticed that, right? But please, go ahead, Joshua.
All right, thank you, sir. Can you remind me of your last name, please? All right, Dr. Douglas. So I wanted to say that I do agree with you, that it is a glaring vulnerability that we have, because we really cannot effectively or totally control the microbial. And therefore, as we would have discussed earlier, or would have presented earlier, the need to expand our tourism product. Because I can sit here and I can still take in something that is happening in the United States of America. And I do believe that the digital tourism possibility is something we need to take into consideration. It came into discussion at the high-level thematic debate in 2022 at UNHQ in New York, where the ASEAN states, they went on to develop a digital framework. They came together and collaborated, did their research on the vulnerabilities in each other's digital sector. And what they did after realizing the vulnerabilities is that they came together and made it stronger. And now they have experiences like digital museums. They have digital concerts, so that in spite of the microbial effects of a pandemic and the human effects of a pandemic, we can still, or the ASEAN states as they currently stand, can still earn foreign exchange through those means. And I do believe that as a region, we can use our diplomatic relations with members of the ASEAN states. I'm happy, Ambassador, that you're here tonight, because I do believe that we can leverage those relationships to do something similar in the Caribbean, because our culture is something that we can take out there and export to the world, and it's valuable. So I do think that is something that we can look at in terms of making tourism resilient against microbial factors.
Thank you. I know we have at least 2 more people who want to speak. Yes? 3. So 4. Okay. So young lady in the pink, come to the microphone and say your name and ask your question.
Okay. Good night. My name is Kiara Quimby. I'm a Cape tourism student at the Lodge School. My question is, you spoke about the You spoke about, you spoke about the education of those within the tourism resilience industry. So I'm asking, what about the people within the country themselves? Do you believe that it's important for the locals to understand tourism resilience? And if yes, what do you think that education will look like?
This had better not be your SBA, okay? Sherma, I'm going to hand this one over to you.
Wow, well, congratulations on doing Cape Tourism. I'll be very happy to have you at the Capeville campus in the next year or two. Certainly, tourism community resilience is an important factor. We often speak about engineering resilience, which is building or engineering our resource, our buildings to withstand disaster. And we often also speak about enterprise resilience, which is oriented to building adaptability within tourism businesses. Hardly do we speak about tourism community resilience, and I'm very glad that you brought it up, similar to the Dean. And what does that look like? It means that if the communities are integral in the delivery of the tourism experience, then we also need to inform them not only of the benefits, but also of the risks and how they need to safeguard themselves against the risks. So creating a knowledgeable community would be important, ensuring that we pull on their indigenous intelligence that we cannot downplay at all, because in that community, there are mature men and mature women who come to the tourism table with a lot of indigenous knowledge that we have to valorize in the tourism experience. Part of that education sometimes means improving living conditions for the communities that participate in tourism. So, for example, in Grosile in St. Lucia, that community has been improved as a result of that interface between themselves and the tourists. And of course, supporting social collaboration. So where the tourism industry and the local community can work on a project, ensure whatever, if it is bringing pipe-borne water, whether it is raising the standard of waste management, whether it is, ensuring that there's primary education or secondary education, whatever that collaborative venture is, we need to do that at the level of the community, as well as tell them that beyond tourism, there are alternatives. Because the student colleague spoke about overdependence, and I think somebody else spoke about overdependence. So help them to share up their eggs, not put their eggs in one basket, will certainly be part of building a more resilient community. So I hope that answers your question, Ms. Kimby.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roberts. I recognize there's three more people. One is Dr. Brewster, the director of our Coastal Zone Management Unit, now at the microphone. Another colleague right next to him, and there's a lady directly in front of me who has indicated that she also wants to ask a question. Dr. Brewster.
So I am really concerned. I want to thank the professor for an excellent presentation that he gave this evening, but I am really concerned, okay? Because the biggest problem that we're facing with this topic, apart from everything that has been raised, to my mind, especially for Barbados, is that we have a very aged tourism plant, right? And I agree with the comment regarding architectural design and structural engineering design and its importance and relevance, and not having a building code and using international standards, and then still taking a pitch determination as to what you're going to spend to try to achieve that level of standard that you can afford and then still accommodate. My problem is the aged plant that we have, not only here in Barbados, but across the region, because a lot of us have been in tourism for more than 30 years. And within that 30 years, We have seen climate change escalate, especially within the last 20 years, to the point where it's so devastating now, it is even frightening to watch, right? Montego Bay has been wiped out. Ocho Rios has been wiped out. If you're looking at those two alone, which is like literally the breadbasket for tourism for Jamaica, you have a situation now where that could have been age plant as well, but you also now have to look at the rebuild and what is going to be done in terms of the approach to rebuilding. When Dorian hit the Bahamas, it was the same sort of thing where the system sat on the islands for like 4 days with those Category 5 winds going. And some people ask about the health and resilience of communities, but I still want to know what the mental health and resilience of people are after that event. And it was portrayed with Dorian. It has been portrayed, more importantly now, as we're seeing with Melissa. Is Barbados really and truly ready for that? Right? I understand that everyone is going to put their bags on and lift their weight, right? But Jamaica's a different breed of people to Barbados. Okay, and I being real, I being factual, you're not gonna laugh. 2 hours without electricity is a major problem, and the prof raised that because he talked about lack of internet, lack of electricity to pump water, lack of internet to drive things that can deal with simple things like cash registers and ATM and access to money. All these become real when a hurricane touches down, right? I am talking about real resilience now that stretches not only in terms of the building structure, but the mental capacity to withstand seeing what you have seen and experienced. I mean, like, even looking at yesterday with the amount of rainfall that took place and everything that happened with flash flooding, and that was only, how long? Not even 24 hours, and Jamaica had that for 3 days. I really hope that we're taking the approach to how we're going to deal with tourism resilience for the region in a very, very serious way, because climate change is not only real, the spin up on these hurricanes is frightening. And the length of time they choose to sit on islands is where the devastation is coming, and that is where we have to get real as well. We have a whole bunch of hotels that were identified by PS Tourism that are going to be coming on stream. Are they going to be taking the concern that you have raised in terms of what's the level of standard, or are they going to tell us that they're building to high category 4 for withstanding, because we've already determined that the cost is so prohibitive to try to build for category 5 that you can't do it, because as much as you would like to think it's going to be resistant, the speeds are going to increase and there still may be nothing left.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brewster, for those sobering words. I actually feel as if this is a point at which Professor can give us some feedback, because the images that were shared of the tsunami is a real point of what we could look like in a very real sense if we got a bad enough hurricane, or if we did get that tsunami. And again, we don't have those cards yet that tell us what elevation we're at, but the psychosocial impact and how we cope with that, if you would.
Well, thank you for the question. That was not easy to answer, in a few words, but
Putting you on the spot. It's not an easy one.
yeah. What I have seen in the affected destination is that what we saw is the solidarity among the community people together with the industry people. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that really helped the affected destinations communities to recover quickly And it's not solely the governmental efforts or support, but how can I say? Maybe it's kind of love to their community, their passion to restore the community life together with the tourism sector. And that's something that we want to generate among the I don't know much about the sentiment of the Barbados people, but I think with such kind of intangible force, or in other words, the passion of the people, it's not easy to really work on the restoration or recovery of the impacted community back to normal, including the tourism sector. And when it comes to immediately after the hazard events, there are visitors still there, but after a few days, they're gone. So after that, everything is about how to restore and recover the ordinary life in the community. And I don't think there's anything like this is what the tourism business has to do or the community have to do. It's just a joint effort that entire community can do with the spirit of solidarity. Did I answer the question?
Well, I think it's a very valid point. We have two more speakers. Christiane is looking at me because we've hit the 9 o'clock mark. So I'm going to entertain our two more speakers, but I think we have to remember that we have Operation Trade Winds, which is our regional training of all of our entities to respond, which is why when Melissa happened, once it was safe to get in there, we have a regional response. And I have to think that notwithstanding the little skirmishes and family fallouts that we have from time to time, as a region, we help each other to survive. And that's how we move forward. Sir, madam, your our final questions for the evening. I'm going to take both of them, allow the speakers to respond, or Christiane will have my head.
Yeah, okay, my name is Grafton Cobham. I am concerned about something here that, for example, for the night, the previous speaker, he was talking about all the natural threats and so on to the tourist sector. But yes, they are natural threats, but there are other things that are very important for sustainability. And certainly what's important is that for sustainability is that Barbadians need to feel that they have access and use of the beach and not too restricted. For example, there was a Bounce Beach just on Sunday, and Wicks is in the inaugural beach football competition. I was there for like a long time, and I was amazed that there were beach chairs stretching about maybe 125 meters along the beach. And, and I grew up playing beach cricket. The Japanese guests will not know what beach cricket is, or may know what beach cricket. But it's not easy enough to play beach cricket with a whole set of chairs alongside the beach. And I have also something about attended a meeting where a new hotel was being proposed, and it was an environmental impact meeting. And the speaker, or the entrepreneur, was talking about he was having floating hotel rooms. Now, this is a concept that Japanese visitors might know about in maybe Mali and Thailand and the Maldives and so on. But as far as I know, there are no floating hotel rooms in Barbados as yet. But he was proposing it. So now you have another threat now. You have the beaches being taken up. You can't play beach cricket. I know your traditional bathing areas taken up by floating hotel rooms. So, you know, I'm concerned with that. I wonder how one of the panelists, Mr.
Durant.
Glasses, will react to that concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, and ma'am, if you would come to the microphone so that when Mark is finished, you can ask your question. Mark?
I think in any development, and there's change, and a lot of us, you know, our parasympathetic nervous system tells us this is the way life's supposed to be. But if we stick to that, we will still be riding horse and buggy. So there is change with development, right? Investors are not going to come if you tell them, you know, you need to put on another 30% onto your cost to build the hotel up to Cat 6. You want to grow, but you need this investment money. So there's some, you know, there's some areas, some gray areas where we probably need to accept this is a part of the change. I understand, I used to play beach cricket too. But when I first went to Thailand, I went to Pattaya and I saw a beach full of chairs, only chairs and walkers. And I said, this could never happen in Barbados. But if you go down to Pebbles, now you see the chairs. So the chairs is a part of your tourism diversification. You know, some small guys rent chairs and so on. Do we have enough beach to share chairs and beach cricket? You know, I can't answer that. But there is, you know, there is that nexus of where we are, where we're happy to be, but where we need to go to survive. Because you do need the investment coming in. You actually need people sitting in those chairs, because those people pay your bills, right? So there's and this is where getting the community involved is important. Our community tourism effort in Barbados is about $300 and something million a year through the Airbnb. That's your community tourism. If there's an event, if last night's event was a Category 5 and you had people in Barbados, those people in those Airbnb would probably be much safer than persons on the coast. Right, so it's a matter of using your community tourism to kind of build resilience at the individual level for my business, how I think about my investment in myself, how I can grow my country just through my effort. I may not be able to play beach cricket anymore, but I may be able to come up with an ingenious way of marrying the two, such that the chairs are the spectators to the cricket. I don't know. We're saying that we're trying to think about the future differently in such a way that we can find middle ground, we can find balance. I think that's what's important.
Thanks very much. Mark, I would suggest that we may encourage the tourists to play the beach cricket, which will help with the health issue, because everybody running about in the sand, it is not easy. Ma'am, you have our final question tonight from the audience.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Miss Nicholas Benter. I'm an MPhil student of Literatures in English and also a part-time tutor. It's quite interesting. At the beginning of the semester, I selected for our students to write the essays on sustainable tourism development. And just today, whilst they were giving their oral presentations, while I was uploading a PowerPoint for one of the students' presentations, I saw this. And that's why I'm here
We're
today.
very happy you saw it.
Yeah, and as a consummate educator, I think my interest always lies in the human interest, resilience of the human spirit. And I think that ties in with one of the latest remarks. What happens to the person who is seeing, who has seen all those devastating things happening? And so, because sustainable tourism itself is such a multi-sectoral industry that touches every aspect of our lives, even the children, I was quite fascinated by the range of topics, narrow topics that the students came up with, and one of them that fascinated me was music. Music as a catalyst, for sustainable tourism development in terms of cultural preservation, how music, kaiso, reggae, soca, helps in sustaining, in marrying tourism with culture, thus making it sustainable, right? And during the pandemic, there was a project called Happiness Project in Jamaica that was established, introduced in the schools to really help the students to cope with the trauma that they would have been going through during the pandemic. And when I reflected on what obtained during the pandemic, how persons were trying to get to cope with the trauma of all that was happening, music was quite there, featured prominently, because everywhere, when you listen to the radios, there was this calypso extempore, calypso humanity,
yes,
and all those things are going on to help persons cope with the pressures. Those with, who had lost their businesses, the small community-based tourism practitioners, the little ladies who did their craft and danced and did stuff, the intangible tourism product that we hardly speak about. I think this is the baseline too. This is the grassroots. And my question is, for the policymakers at the head table, what policies do you recommend or would you recommend for boosting that happiness factor in the face of pandemics and other natural disasters? Because tourism is part and parcel of all that. Thank you.
And one quick. All right, so from the Ministry of Tourism's perspective, it's not, we've started to look at the linkages program. We've actually had Parliament approve it. What is the linkages program? It was felt that tourism is growing and leaving all the other sectors behind, all these farmers, the manufacturers, you know, there are other elements to it. And we said this was a wonderful, in fact, it's not our idea, it was something that's being pushed by the Prime Minister, who wanted us to implement the idea. And we are now implementing the idea where we're bringing, I guess it's personal resilience of persons in sectors connected directly and indirectly to tourism. In order, if you build a person's sense of identity, events can come and go, but your identity dictates how you handle the events. So that's where we're trying to go, and we are happy in the Caribbean naturally. I think being born in the tropics or living in the tropics, there's a natural element of happiness that just goes with the breeze. If you can marry that natural state with a sense of self-determination and purpose and proximity to something that is already beneficial, which is the growth in the tourism sector. Not saying we're over-dependent on the tourism sector, but we're using it to build strength in connecting sectors which in themselves become strong. If you can grow an agricultural sector that can sell the cruise ships, and then there are no cruise ships, we have supply for the nation. Because there are no cruise ships, there's nothing coming. You can't be vexed with that situation. If you have your natural mineral water, and Barbados is a mineral water country, you can sell, again, you're selling tourists, you're selling, there's no cruise ships, you have your own water for your own use. So in trying to diversify the economy, you kind of build that resilience and that self-comfort for yourself. And it's even better when there's a community of people who can support you and support what they're doing, that supports the whole initiative of that movement. I think that in itself gives you your identity. So events can come and go, but your identity is what defines you, how you act in the moment.
Thanks for that, Mark. And in wrapping up, I'm going to give each panelist their final soundbite really fast. You can get like 30 seconds to 1 minute, that critical thing that you want everybody to remember that you said tonight.
I think based off some of the questions that were asked here, I just want to say that I think when it comes to tourism resilience, we need to think about designing with a bit of sensitivity. We don't want to just, because we know they are coming, that we provide everything for them. We are dependent on them, but we still want to have sensitivity to how we design, how we allow them to integrate within our community, within our islands, within our lives. And we definitely, we want to build stronger, but we want to look at the planning of how we do what we do.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Joshua?
Artie, thank you. I think tonight we have consensus among all of us that there is need for fortifying and building a stronger tourism product. what we need to understand today and what we need to take back to the various organizations that we represent is an idea of what that looks like. And what does it look like? It in my opinion, looks like a Barbados or Caribbean or world even, in which a natural disaster does not shatter our economy. And I think Professor Moore would love that. It looks like persons in your communities understanding their roles in the tourism product and what their roles are in the likely event that a natural disaster occurs. It looks like the owners, the hoteliers, understanding that they have a role to play once constructing their plan, in constructing something that withstands severe and strong weather systems and not be powered by a capitalist view, which we spoke about earlier, doing the least and expecting and hoping for maximum profit. These are things that I believe we need to take back this evening, and we need to preserve our tourism product and also build resilience in our local economies.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I'm going to hop on to our online participant and ask Sherma for her final soundbite.
Thank you, Chair. I want to say that resilience is the ability to adapt or to return to normalcy. But having said that, to recognize that it is not a linear process and that it includes all aspects of resilience, the engineering aspect, the ecological aspect, the community aspect, and as Damien said, the emotional resilience. I also want to say that in this moment that we have certain risks to our resilience, an aging population, overdependence on tourism, climate change, and certainly a high level of nationalism. And we need to take those into consideration if we are to do as SEDIMA has asked us to do, to bounce forward quickly, and as the UNDRR has asked us to do, build back better. Thank you so much for that. Mark, you want to have some final words, or those beautiful words you talked about earlier were your final words? Yeah, those were your final words?
I'll say this. And you probably need to say end with something, slightly prophetical. But on the road to resilience, I'm thinking, let's not drive with our park lights. Let's drive with our brights and our headlights so we can fully spot on the problem and fully have an idea of how we can solve it. That's philosophical enough.
That works, thank you. I will make sure that I am on my highlights tonight as opposed to my dims. Given the final soundbite to our guest tonight, Professor Takamatsu, your final words for us tonight.
Yes, two things that makes tourism resilience a reality. One, leadership. Unless the top leadership believes in the necessity and importance of the tourism resilience, nothing happens in the organization, may it be a public sector or private sector. And second, do a small thing every day. You don't have to be, perfectly 100% prepared for any of the potential disaster crisis event. But start with the very, very small things, but do it every day. So whatever happens, you don't have to think about it or look into the manual. Your muscles remembers what to do. So leadership and do small things every day.
Thank you very, very much. And on those words, I want us all to give our panelists and our keynote speaker a round of applause. I'm going to hand back over to the chair, the real chair, but I want to thank you, the audience. A discourse does not work unless people are willing to talk. I know that we wanted a full room, but we were dramatic. We decided, let's have a flood and prove that resilience is important. And as a consequence, the room was not as full of people, but the room was amazingly full of brilliant ideas. I thank you very much for that. Christian?
Thank you, Dr. Cumberbatch, for leading us through this very complex discussion. And can we have a hand for our moderator, please? And of course, thanks again to our panelists for really leaning into their subject areas and bringing the very useful insights and expertise that they have on these matters. But of course, before we adjourn, we must make one final plug for you to visit the exhibits that are set up in the rear of the room. And we thank Dr. Kurt Douglas, the Director of Biosecurity Studies, for engaging our exhibitors and getting them into our event tonight, and who have on display for you a range of their sustainability-inspired products, services, and reference materials. So please do visit with them, place some orders if there is that facility, and at least take away some information that you can act on later. We also have a special booth sponsored by the Embassy of Japan, thank you, Ambassador, which will be serving samples of sake. And we encourage you to stay and have a taste as well. Ladies and gentlemen, these events are never possible without a dedicated team to stand up all of our arrangements, the ones that you see and the ones that you don't. And we delivered tonight's program under some pretty adverse weather conditions, as you've heard repeated quite a bit tonight. So I really do express my deepest thanks to the team for staying the course today to ensure that we brought this program to the public against all odds. It is important work, and especially now, and I commend the dedication of everyone involved. To our speakers who brought remarks, Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UE Cave Hill Campus, Professor Clive Landis, His Excellency Yusuke Miyasaka, Ambassador, Embassy of Japan, Ms. Haruna Mori, representing our partners and co-sponsors, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA. Thank you so much. Ms. Deborah Norville, delivering remarks on behalf of the Honourable Minister of Tourism and International Transport, Mr. Ian Gooding-Edgell. And we also thank our moderator, once again, Dr. Janice Cumberbatch, and our panel this evening, Dr. Sherma Roberts, Mr. Mark Durant, Ms. Naomi Tavernier, and Mr. Joshua Harris. And last but by no means least, we thank Professor Masato Takamatsu, Sensei, President of Tourism Resilience Japan, and the distinguished JICA chair speaker for this evening. We thank you all. I also extend my thanks to colleagues in the Office of the Principal, the Office of the Campus Registrar, the Office of Marketing and Communications, the Office of Institutional Planning and Infrastructural Services, the Center for Biosecurity Studies, the UE Usher Corps, Campus Security Services, the Bursary, the Registry, the Sagicor Cave Hill School of Business and Management, and all departments and staff that have made this event possible for us. And of course, we express our thanks to Corbyn's Catering for providing the refreshments of which we will shortly partake. And to those of you who brave the elements to join us in person, we thank you sincerely once again, and we thank those viewers who joined the forum via our UWITV live stream platforms. Thank you, one and all. I'm Christiane Walcott, and it has been my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies this evening. So stay safe out there, and it's goodbye for now from the Cave Hill campus.